Assalamu alaikum. In this lecture, we will be installing the Clean compiler on Linux. As you can see, I will be using Ubuntu to illustrate the installation. Also, I want to note that when I was preparing this video, I found that the traditional Clean compiler is no longer accessible from the wiki.clean.cs.ru.nl/download clean webpage. Probably the developers will not be supporting the traditional compiler any longer. As you can see, if I click on the link, which is supposed to download the Clean compiler on Linux, I receive a forbidden permission. Also, I cannot access all the other links. In case this changed in the future, I have an old video on YouTube explaining how to install the Clean compiler traditionally on Linux. I will be linking that video in the resources of this lecture. Now let's focus on the modern compiler installation. So to begin with, head to the page clean-lang.org website, then click on the install button. This will forward us to the installation of the Clean package manager, so-called Nitrile. Now what is Nitrile, you may ask? Well, Nitrile is a package manager for Clean, and a package manager is used to download already written Clean code from the internet. And by already written, I mean the code which was made by other people and is publicly available on the internet. The code on the internet is called a package, or a dependency, and Nitrile can install these packages, codes, dependencies, call it whatever. If you have already dealt with Python, or ever dealt with it, for example, then you have used pip to download Python modules, or if you came from a JavaScript realm, then you use npm to download JavaScript modules. So Nitrile for Clean is what pip is for Python and what npm is for JavaScript. Another thing to know is that Nitrile also can compile your code and output executable files. Now to install the package manager, we just need to put the following command to the terminal. Let's copy it, then click on the terminal icon. Now let's paste the installation command. Well, it failed because for the command to work properly, it requires a tool called curl, and since this is a new minimal Ubuntu installation, it doesn't have most of the Linux packages and tools required to install or run the Nitrile tool correctly. By the way, this is mentioned in the website, but I intentionally skipped reading that. Anyway, let's install the curl Linux package by typing sudo apt install curl. Now enter the computer's password and then let Ubuntu do its job. Before installing the rest of the Linux packages, let's actually try to run the installation command again and see what happens. And it failed again. And this time it was pretty nice to tell us that JQ is missing. JQ is another Linux package that can be installed same as curl. So type sudo apt install JQ, then press Y because we truly want to continue the installation. Now let's try the installation command once again and see if it can install Nitrile. And it works, and it tells us to put home mohido.nitrile bin to our path variable. What it is trying to say here is that to be able to use the Nitrile command from the terminal, we need to tell the terminal where to find it. Whenever we put a command to the terminal, Ubuntu looks to all the directories inside the path variable until it finds the command. It is valuable to know that every command in Linux is a tool installed somewhere in the system, and when we use the apt command to install a tool, curl for instance, it is added automatically to the path variable. However, when we install a custom tool like Nitrile, we need to add the location of the tool to the path manually. So to do that, type the following command and be careful while typing it. Now type echo double quotes path equal /home / the user variable /nitrile /bin colon and the path variable. After that, close the double quotes, then two larger than operators, and then the wave sign /dot bash rc. This will add the location of the Nitrile binaries to the path variable. But before running the command, please make sure to have a copy of the .bash rc file somewhere for a backup, in case something goes wrong, because this command will manipulate that file, and that file is important for the terminal to start properly. After running the command, we need to start a new terminal to be able to use the Nitrile tool. So let's again start a new terminal. And if everything goes well, Ubuntu will find the command when we type Nitrile in the terminal. Now let's create a new folder and call it clean. To do that, type mkdir space clean. After that, let's navigate to this folder by typing cd space clean. And let's create another folder and call it hello world. Again, type mkdir space hello-world. To be able to compile the code, we require to create a Nitrile configuration file. Let's create the configuration file that Nitrile needs. We can do this by simply typing Nitrile init. Then we must answer some basic questions. Note that these answers can be changed later at any time. 1. The package name is just the name of the application, and it can be literally anything. And it can be changed later as well. Just remember that it does not accept spaces, only alphanumerics are accepted. And remember to name it something cool in case you want to make it public. 2. The description. And this can be literally anything, you can write anything inside there. And the only purpose of this thing is to describe your package. 3. The package type decides if it's an application or just a code that others will be using. In other words, does the code contain the start function or not? Let's leave it as an application by pressing enter. 4. The version. Basically, the convention is that the first number is the major release, the middle one is the minor release containing some features and fixes, while the last number is some patches. Since our application will not be released to the public, the versioning system doesn't really matter. 5. The license, which tells people how to use your package. Can everyone resell it? Can everyone use it freely or even edit it? For example, one famous open source license on GitHub is MIT, which allows everyone to use your code for whatever reason they like. Since we are not publishing this package, let's skip the license part. Remember, you can literally change everything later. 6. The GitLab namespace. And GitLab is a website where you can upload your code to, and we will not be really uploading the Hello World application yet. So let's skip this part as well. 7. You can write your name in the maintainer section. 8. The contact email is self-descriptive. The people who will be downloading your package can send you spams there, so be careful. Let's now list all the files in this folder by typing ls space -al in the terminal. This is the configuration file that Nitrile needs, and it is a YAML file type. And a YAML file is a simple text file used for organizing data in a readable way, much like a list of nodes consisting of key value pairs. The Nitrile tool understands these values. Note that to save the lecture time, your homework will be to read about the YAML syntax. Also, I'll be sharing useful links in the resources of this lecture. Since this is a new Ubuntu installation, I don't have any fancy editors just yet. For example, I cannot use Visual Code. We will continue after I download the Visual Code editor. And I have just finished downloading the Visual Code editor. Now let me navigate to the projects folder and open the Visual Code editor there. For this setup, we require to create a new folder containing the source code. You can call the folder anything, but the convention is to call it src, standing for source code. Now, to start writing some code, let's create our first code file and name it application.icl. And to begin our journey in Clean, we must know the number one rule in Clean. That is, every file containing clean code must start with the word module, then followed by the file name. Application in our case. Just don't write the .icl part. After that comes our code. But keep in mind that every usable application in Clean must contain a function called start. This is the thing that is executed when the application is being executed. So, for this simple useless application, let's just make it print hello world or return hello world. Type start, then equal, and the hello world between double quotes. We can add colors and highlights to the keywords to help us differentiate what is what. And there is a Visual Code extension which does just that. Let's download it. And if you don't know, an extension is just an additional feature you can add to Visual Code, and there is an extension for highlighting clean code. So let's navigate to the extensions panel by clicking on the four funny squares on the left. This will take us to the extensions area. Let's search for the clean extension, and we found it. Click on the install. Go back to the code and see how it looks now. It looks perfect and colorful. Now, to be able to compile our code, we need to edit the default Nitrile configuration file. If we open the Getting Started with Nitrile webpage, we can see the extra configurations that are required to compile our code. First, let's copy the compiler configuration. This configuration provides information to the compiler on where to locate the code files and where to output the executables. Also, the clean compiler can be configured by editing the main and target values. The main value takes the file name containing the start keyword, and the target value tells the compiler where to output the executable. Also, sadly for us, Nitrile doesn't install the compiler by default. We must install it manually, or tell Nitrile that this project requires the compiler. This is the default behavior because sometimes you will be working on a code that others will be using in their application as a dependency. So you will be sharing your code, thus it doesn't require a compiler. However, in our case, we are shipping an application, an executable, so we need a compiler to compile it. And to add the compiler, let's copy and paste the dependency section in the Getting Started page. This configuration will tell Nitrile to install the base dependency, which contains the compiler plus some standard code that we can use in our code, in our application. This was probably a lot to handle, but this is only done once. We will not be really touching this file for a while. Let's open the terminal again. Type Nitrile update. This will sync Nitrile to the Internet Packages database. You can think of it as if Nitrile is reading the news about the new online packages. After updating Nitrile, let's command Nitrile to download the dependencies listed in the nitrile.yaml file. So type Nitrile, fetch, and hit enter. Now, after creating our code, configuring Nitrile, and downloading the dependencies, let's build our code. Type Nitrile build, and of course an error will happen. This is mainly because we skipped some of the Linux packages, tools that are required by Nitrile. Let's go back to the clean-lang.org webpage and download the rest of the Linux packages. Well, I'd skipped installing the tar and gcc earlier, so let's install them. However, this time I will be using the apt-get command instead of the apt. It does literally the same thing. So to install both of them, let's type sudo apt-get install tar gcc. Now let's try to build the application again. This time it works. As you can see, a new folder called bin was added. The bin contains our executables. So let's navigate to it and see what's inside it. We can execute the application by simply typing where it is in the terminal. In our case, we just need to type ./app. Now we can see the output, hello world. And we can see that our application compiled and the executable was renamed to app because remember we specified that in the target value inside the Nitrile configuration file. Now let's change the code and recompile again to check if everything is working perfectly. For now, I will just add this is edited code to the hello world output and rerun the application. As you can see, it didn't output the new changes because we have not compiled the new code yet. Let's recompile by typing nitrile build again to the terminal. Now, again, we can execute the application by typing where the application is. In our case, we just need to type bin/app. Finally, the output is updated. In this lecture, we covered how to install Nitrile, the package manager for Clean, how to configure it, then we downloaded the dependencies, and finally we built the application. This tedious process is only done once at the start of any project. After that, we can just use the Nitrile build to compile the application. And thank you all for watching, and goodbye.